Hey everybody, this is your host, Vinyl Man Jeb of the Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio Podcast Edition. Yes, there's also the radio show every week, Tuesdays 1 to 3 p.m., but this is the podcast side, where today we are with Anton Barbeau, speaking about his new album, Power Pop, and many other cool treats in this one. Take a listen, you might just learn something.
Hi, this is Terry Draper from Plateau.
I'm Brendan O'Hare. I used to be in Teenage Fan Club.
Hey, this is Tyler Green.
Owen Radford.
It's Josh Bradley.
Tino Troy from Praying Mantis.
Blandy Flowers.
I'm Frankie Siragusa, and you're tuning into Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio Show with Vinyl Man Jeb.
Let's just have a chat down here.
You're listening to Mad Wasp Radio.
Hey everybody, this is your host, Vinyl Man Jeb of the Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio Podcast, sponsored by RoboJack Records, Big Star Records, Straight to Video Podcast. Oh, we got all the sponsors, guys. But we have Anton Barbeau on with us today. Hey, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm a bit sleepy because I woke up way too early today, and my jet lag is still mucking me about. But I'm hanging in there. That's
right. You're in Berlin. That's right.
Yeah.
How is Berlin? That's pretty cool. I've never been out of the States, so I've always wondered what that would be like. So.
I love it here. I mean, I lived here for almost 10 years, and moved back to California just recently, but have come back a couple times already. Yeah, it's my favorite place, Berlin. It's beautiful. Bit cold, at the moment. But.
Do you ever find that inspiration from where you are for your songs and et cetera, kind of like thing where like the weather or, the place where you're from? I'm sure Berlin has very beautiful landscapes as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few things that are really sort of specific. I've got a song called Clubbing in Berlin and another one called Berliner Grotesque. But I just sometimes just the atmosphere of any place will rub off. And other times, not at all. I mean, I've got songs that I've written here that could have been written in England or in California, Yeah. So sometimes it really filters in or there's a deliberate effort to take the essence of a place and put it into a song.
Yeah, I like that because it's like, you look at where you are and you could be like inspired by anything, that moves or anything. And what got you into music?
Yeah, I mean, I was just hearing the Beatles probably before I was even born. My parents were listening and so that was the first one. And I took Yamaha music lessons when I was very little, maybe 3 or something like that. And I think that Yamaha music lessons are good for ear training. They teach you to sort of just pick out things. And there's another moment. I remember driving around with my mother in her Studebaker, and some track came on the radio, and I was, again, too young to be able to ask what it was exactly, but I was dying to know, what is this song? And she couldn't tell me. So I kind of feel like I've spent my life trying to, rewrite that song. The primary moment that kind of turned me into a musician was my dad and I were at a department store and came across the first Casio keyboard, and he saw me playing it and thought, oh my gosh, he can play Beethoven. And I was playing 4 notes, da 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 da, and that was good enough. So he got me the Casio, and I just kind of, from that point on, that was it. I became a musician, really. So.
Man, very cool.
Yeah.
And you just recently had a song, Rain Rain, with Big Star Records be released, which we played on our show. What was the inspirations behind writing that one?
Well, that's actually one of the songs from a thing called the Teen Suite on that album, the Power Pop album. And these are songs that I wrote when I was a teenager. So I've just kind of gone back and freshened up the recording of these old tunes. And I just thought it would, it's a song that's kind of held up. I never performed it live when I was a teenager. I've only done it at gigs in recent years. So it's kind of a new song in a way, but it's actually something from way back when.
Oh, very cool. So it's like, your older self and your newer self enjoying each other's music at the same time because you're bringing back the older songs that you've written. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's something different too. A lot of people don't even touch their older stuff. They don't want to dare go back, always going forward. I love that. I mean, you're very prolific. I see 20 plus albums under your name. That is really cool.
Thank you. I think it's 30 plus at this point.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. I heard that you actually also worked with the Loud Family, which is members of the Game Theory band as well, which I'm a big fan of. What was that like to work with them?
Well, yeah, I mean, this next, or I guess it's this week, isn't it? There's the re-release of What If It Works, which is a record I made with Scott Miller.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I done a handful of things with Scott over the years, and when we finally had the chance to do a record together, it was really fun. And I don't know if that's always the first word that comes to mind when people think of Scott Miller records, Game Theory, Loud Family. It's not like sort of fun party music. but he hadn't been really doing any music or hadn't been doing any recording. The Loud Family had broken up a few years earlier. So when we did this record together, it was just meant to be fun. Let's go in the studio and do some cover songs and do a few things. And then bit by bit, it grew. It turned into an album. And it was just wonderful. I mean, I like I said, I'd known Scott for some years at that point, but to actually be able to do a record together was just a pleasure, and great memories. They were good memories. So.
Game Theory. I think it's great to start with the power pop because your new album is called just Power Pop with 3 exclamation points here. What was inspiration behind calling the album just that? Like what came to mind when you were naming your album?
Well, I suppose I've said before, I can be quite frustrated with the way that the power pop genre is kind of a self-limiting thing, and it's power pop as a scene has welcomed my music, since I started really. And so there's a little bit of, biting the hand that goes on with me here. But I kind of felt like, if I call my record power, maybe because in the power pop community, there's such a sort of a strange concern over whether something is power pop or not, if it doesn't have a tambourine, And so I just thought, well, if I call my record power pop, then tough, it's power pop. And so it's quite, I'm just being contrary and playing with the idea of genre, because I understand we have to name things. That's a horse, that's a dog. It's how we organize our lives. But at the same time, when something feels like it doesn't actually do justice, and I suppose being often sort of branded a power pop artist, but then feeling like, well, no, I mean one of the problems I have with that genre is that it wants to stay in a very specific place. And for me, music is meant to go everywhere, all the way out and all the way in, not just kind of in a compact place. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, I mean, we all listen to all kinds of music, and that's the beautiful thing for, that we have here. But I just sort of wanted to define it myself, or redefine it, or just throw a pinch of salt in people's eyes, maybe, because I'm a brat.
I love it. Well, I like the idea because I know when I joined the power pop groups that I love, the certain group I really like is Power Pop Overdose. It doesn't seem to be as much of that whole argument in there, but maybe I just don't look at it every day. But Kurt Vance is a good friend of mine, and I really enjoy what he brings to the table with. And I love that, like you said, with being genre, music isn't genre defining, it's everything. Have you toured at all? Any favorite tour memories that you have reminding, like going around on tour?
I've done two gigs in the last two years or something like that. But yeah, before that, I mean, I used to do Spain usually twice a year, and I would tour the UK. Yeah, do a UK tour once a year, and just lots of sort of spotted gigs around Europe. Just one-offs. I played Istanbul once. That was interesting.
That's unique. How was that?
Yeah. It's very smoky, the venue was a basement, and everybody was smoking, and but it was beautiful. I mean, I loved being there, and so I used to tour a lot. I mean, when I lived in England, and from England it was easy to come over to Europe and tour, and then I moved over to Berlin, and it was easy to go back to England, or move from here to Spain, or like I said, or Italy or something, So I've done more touring over here than I have in the States, which is kind of funny. Done one or two up and down the coasts.
And then being credited
the West
for
Coast.
being in California, which is hilarious because it's like Yeah, I'm there. I'm the producer there and everything, but it's all actually all over here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure your music changes, upon like what's, with that. But I noticed there's like with so many releases, it was fun to listen to a few. And I picked a lot of songs to go over from your new record that's coming out on the 25th. I'm very excited for that. Very, we'll do like nice little special for you and have the songs and your inspirations behind them. But that'll be coming up towards the end of the interview here. I picked 4 songs that I would like to know more about and have our viewers know as well. And my next question for you is, how did you get involved with Big Stir Records? How did that come about?
I don't remember specifically. I mean, it's sort of just an overlap of people who know each other, and bit by bit, somebody says, "Oh, do you know these guys?" And somebody else says, "Do you know those guys?" And um, so at some point, our orbits kind of, touched edge, and I don't even know when it turned
It's just
into,
like it so
hey,
happened naturally that it was like this is just what it
yeah,
is.
well,
Yeah, I
yeah,
got you.
that's exactly it. I mean, just sort of, community full of people who kind of halfway know the other half of the people in there, so
Rex and Christina are so cool, and
they're
always
really
been
just
a
good
fan.
people. They're
Yeah.
really good people, good
They're
human
different from the
beings.
usual. They're so different from all the time you hear a record label, oh, they drain you or all they this. It's not when they work with you like a family. It's such a cool thing. And that's what we strive to make our record label like as well, as more of like a family promoting thing. We have friends of the label that come on just 1 or 2 releases. We're not signing them. We're just having fun. And it's just a way to get the music out there because it's just a driving force. Music speaks for itself, And I
Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
that. I love that. And I'm a huge fan of the psychedelic genre, the power pop genre, stuff like that. And as soon as I told him, I said, I'd love to interview Anton. I just would be honored. And it was just, I've heard Rain Rain and I was like, this is so cool. Cause it's different from what I usually play for like what, it's usually hard rock or something like that. I just loved how like kind of just gentle it was, but at the same time had a message. And I really enjoyed that. And I picked a few more songs from that album, like I said, as well. Before we get into that, though, I wanted to ask, what's in store for the future after this album? We'll get into that first, then we'll go through the songs.
Yeah. Well, let's see. When I was in California, I was working on yet another album after I finished Power Pop. Just kind of, in a way, it's just a continuation from Power Pop, which I kind of think of as, the fragmented pandemic brain. Just in a house, in a room with all my gear, and making music constantly. And so this next batch, I think, it's got a different feel in some ways, and it's a bit more maybe guitar heavy, but it still feels to me like it's coming from the same fragmented brain that gave the world Power Pop. But then following that, in the first week back in Berlin, I managed to write 12 songs, which even for me, I'm a prolific guy, but even for me, 12 songs in 1 week is unprecedented. So I'm really excited about this. I sort of, I did the bulk of the writing in the first week, and the second week kind of just touched up lyrics a little bit, and then I've left it hanging since then. I'll take it back to California, and hopefully it'll hold up as a solid album, and an entity unto itself, and it'll be a document of sort of this moment for me, which is interesting. Usually an album takes, a year or two or 20 to write, so this is a very different experience. It's 1 week's worth of.
I love that. Usually you're taught like you got to do this or this or this, and sometimes it just happens. Sometimes you get that inspiration and it's boom, it's done. And there's demos already out. I've done 23 tracks on my own for a concept album in a matter of a week, not a week, but like a month, and a matter of like just doing that. And I'll write songs in a day and record in the same day because I have a home studio, which is nice. Definitely something I'm happy to have as a musician as well. And it's just so cool that I could do, all this. But then there's also, those aren't sometimes, I'm really happy when there are really good songs, because sometimes it could just be, you run that risk of, because it's so much, it's the same, it sounds the same, But it's nice when songs actually tell their own stories. Do you find yourself as a writer, kind of like, when you make those, like you said, with the 12 songs in a week, did you see any like themes kind of transfer through all the songs, or they kind of like, have their own, even though they're all written in the same time period? Something like that. I'm trying to word that right.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, because it was such a fuzzy experience writing so much so quickly, I don't know. I couldn't say, oh, this particular song is about this thing or this person or this subject. They're just very blurry, and I was improvising lyrics, and then I would go back and kind of, pencil in what I thought it sounded like I was saying. So I don't have so much an image of what these songs are about. It's more just, that little blob of music. Oh, that's got a good feel to it. Oh, so does this one. Oh, this one. So I don't know. I wanted it to be a very free and freeing experience. I wanted to write this stuff without thinking about it, without thinking of what anybody was going to, imagining what anybody else might say. It's just,
Hey everybody, this is your host, Vinyl Man Jeb, here on the podcast that you're listening to currently. We're going to go over some of the songs with Anton and talk about some of the new ones on the new record. So stay tuned. The songs will not be in this episode because they're going to be on the Unlikely Places airwaves. So just when that happens, we'll try to line it up when this podcast comes out. We'll try to make that work. But this is probably going to be out a week before that episode's even possible, so it'll be the next episode after. So just keep an eye out on the Tuesdays on madwaspradio.com, and you'll figure out, Anton's episode on. I just listened to that, so I'll check that in for this section of the podcast with the songs. So I picked 4 from the new album to keep it fun and fresh, and help promote the album as well for you. And the first one I picked was American Road. What was the inspirations behind that one, and what's that one about?
In a way, it's for me, it's one of the more literal pieces of writing that I've got. And in this case, it's it's me after I'd moved back to California, and I'm living on my wife's family farm now, and in a sort of a small town, and to get anywhere, we have to get in the car. Even if I would just want to drive to get coffee 5 minutes away, still have to get in the car to get there. And this is after 15 years living abroad, where I don't drive in Berlin. You want to go somewhere, you get on the train or you walk. And so being back in a car every day and being out in traffic and being surrounded by people in giant pickup trucks are coming at you, I just sort of felt so threatened by that. It was just really, my system is just too delicate, I think, to live inside a car. And so, that's what the song is about. It's, I don't want to die on American Road. And it kind of tells the story of coming back from Berlin and ending up in a much smaller place.
I was gonna say, it's got to be very different, the drastic change of the scenery and everything as well, and Berlin's a bigger country too, right? Is a bigger area, right, of Germany as well, than would be coming to a smaller town, So it's very cool to come from that, open kind of atmosphere nature wise, and then all of a sudden coming back to the rural or even the city life, it's very different. I like that. The next song I picked was Free. I picked that one as well. It looks like I'm picking a theme here, but I just was picking a few songs. But the next one I picked was Free. The same thing. What one's that about, and the inspirations behind that?
I wrote that one. I slept overnight in a pub in Swindon in England after having done a gig there, and I was living in Cambridge at the time in England. So I was taking the bus back home, early morning bus, and I just started scribbling this song. I had Alison Seconds in mind for it because we had just finished her first record, which is actually a record that was reissued on Big Stir, since we're talking about those guys, the Big Stir people. But anyway, so I had this song in mind for Alison, but we didn't get to it. Whatever sort of songs were in the, just following the first record, most of those songs kind of faded away. And then years later, we got around to making a second record with all new material. But anyway, so I wrote this one on the bus and recorded a demo of it, and then kind of forgot about it until, last year or whenever I recorded it. And in this case, I had Rosie Abbott singing along with me on this track. And I don't know. I don't know if it's what the song is about exactly. It's just kind of whimsical. Because it was written with Alison Seconds in mind, there's sort of a different persona. There's a different attitude. I think I was more just trying to speak from her, the point of view of her attitude, her kind of vibe. But then I just sort of recorded the song myself and put it out on this record because I thought, it's a good little song. I like this one. Forgot all about it, and here it is.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that you write as well as because I've worked with artists as well when I collab, and I always seem to write in how they would sound or how they would write themselves. And it's good to hear that somebody else does that too. I'm not insane, but I love that. I love
I think it's
such a fun trait as a writer to give somebody the ability to easily get into the role of their own character, and I love that.
It's nice to put.
The way I do like my songs is I have it's like a novel, and it's like it's a never-ending novel, and there's always these different characters that come to mind of my own songs. Like I have a character named Death, a character named April, stuff like that. It's just I'm a writer in my head, so I'm not good at writing on paper, but I'm a good writing in head. So I'm like my songs are that answer for that, and I just noticed that with a lot of artists lately, they kind of seem to write, the love songs. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just seems it's so cool when I find someone that has like characters in mind or writing in the vision of somebody else. It just adds more flavor, and I very much appreciate having songs like that. And it's funny, I just got a notification. I'll edit this out. Rex just sent me the album, so I have the digital, and so I can actually edit these into the episode for us. So what I'll do is I'll make a real nice special for you, and I'll add a few extra songs in there too, which I'll decide. And then I'll probably just text you and be like, "So what's this one about?" And you can brief description, and I'll just say it out loud on the radio show for you. And then the next one I picked was "Whisper in the Wind." What's that one about, and the inspirations behind that as well?
Oh, well, that's another one like Rain Rain that comes from the Teen Suite. I don't even know how old I was, 16 or something like that when I wrote "Whisper in the Wind." And I think it's probably not about anything. It's just this sort of fantasy girlfriend that every teenager imagines they will have someday, and which is like a perfect power pop song, really. But so the only inspiration I can remember is the band OMD. I was kind of trying to do something. So it was definitely influenced by Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, and so there's another song on the Power Pop album called /Z-Zip, which reminded me of OMD, so I gave it the title, which is an anagram of Dazzle Ships. Now they know. I've told everybody. But anyway, so "Whisper in the Wind," I don't know what it's about. It's about some imaginary girl, and the inspiration was OMD. So very concise. I'm not usually so concise.
There you go. You found maybe it's just the way it's happening. I get all the scoops lately on unlikely places. I always feel it's very fun. And another one I picked was because I'm a huge Material Issue fan, and you're probably going where I'm going with this. I saw Valerie's Waiting, and I'm always a big fan of any song with a girl's name in it because it's very power pop, such a power pop thing to do, but it's also not, other rock guys have done it too, of course. And but it kind of relates to what we were talking about earlier on in today's podcast. And what was Valerie's Waiting about, and the inspirations behind that one?
It was partly about some childhood friends of mine. This guy who used to be a babysitter of mine when I was little. I read one day that he died in an avalanche in Nepal. I think he was in the Peace Corps. Yeah, and so he had a sister called Valerie. So I was just kind of just imagining it from sort of her perspective or something. But again, you're picking all the teen sweet songs.
It's funny with me because I haven't heard it yet. Like as was just saying, I just looked at the names. I was like, that one's calling to me. That one's calling to me. See, maybe I'm a teenager in the head. That's what's happening here. I am 22, so maybe it's just catching up to me. I could pick a few others, of course, as well too. I seem to have maybe it's just the way my brain's going towards. If there's any ones you want to talk about as well, I could throw them in the episode too. If there's any ones that you, especially on this album, that you like, of course.
I'm happy to, go with wherever we go. Yeah.
I love it. No, it's funny to me because sometimes I just pick the songs by just the names or what's calling to me, and it seems like maybe my mind's going that way now.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote Valerie's Waiting before probably before Material Issue
There
were
you go,
formed. You know,
there you
so
go. So maybe they found a way to leak into your brain before you even knew. No, I love. I've been a big fan of Material Issue. We just recently, the reason I like to link some of the stuff that we've had on our show before, some of the people, and we had Ted Ansani on the show before, so it was just really cool to see something like that, and then to be like, oh, it's actually way before that. And it's like, okay, cool, you know. But it's just so
if
cool.
you want to
like, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, if we want to tie everything together, I would tell your listeners to go check out Steve Winwood's video for his song Valerie. You see, because when we did the video for my song Rain Rain with Steve Winwood's Valerie video in mind. So all roads lead to Steve Winwood. You know.
I love Traffic. I love Traffic. Yeah. That is awesome. Steve Winwood's one of my favorites, and very cool. And yeah, well, I'll link everything down below as well. So I'll find that video and I'll put it down in our description for our YouTube side. The podcast side's kind of tough, but if the video's online, if I can find it, I will definitely link it for you.
Yeah, it's
very, very exciting.
Very sweet,
Oh, go ahead.
It's a very 80s video. Very 80s video.
I love it.
Steve Winwood's very sincere, you know.
Yeah. Any favorite Traffic song? Throw that in too. I'll throw it on the episode if you have one. Could always play like Dear Mr. Fantasy or something as well. That's such a big hit, but I could always play that too.
There's nothing wrong with a big hit. Everyone likes a big hit now.
Of course. It makes people sing and dance. That's always a good thing. I'll throw maybe a Traffic song on every episode. I like playing songs. I've done that like I know Laney Flowers mentioned like I think he mentioned or it was Tony Valentino mentioned something too because I had him on too, and he was mentioning something about how one of the songs that they were covering early on that their Ed wrote, their manager, actually became a later song for Soft Cell. I was trying to remember the name. So it was like I just played the Soft Cell song too because I was like, why not? You know, it's always fun. I have the power to do that as a radio host, so it's really cool. I love Mad Wasp Radio. But thank you, Anton, for coming on. I really appreciate it. And hopefully in the future we'll have you on again. You know, more to talk about, more albums. I'll do my research as well. I find it fun to come into an interview a little differently. Is like most people, they want to know everything. I want to come in learning, and that's what makes it different for me. So I don't have to be like everybody else, know everything, but I know a few things, and I asked Rex a few questions that I should ask and stuff like that. So I was all excited for that. So I was
good.
We'll have you on again, definitely. I'm very very excited to follow your career as a inspiring musician, and you have inspired me a little bit as well, and I'm very excited to say so, and hopefully more inspiration as I listen to more of your songs. And I'm very excited. Yeah. So I'll let you know how I think of the new album because it just got sent to me. I'll be digging that tonight. I'll be all ears on that. So I'm very excited. And
good.
What I'll have you do, if you would like, radio ID I usually ask from some of our artists here that come on the show. I'll just give you all the script details, and if you have a chance, I don't know if you have your recording equipment over there in Berlin, or a way to record. Just you saying like this is Unlikely Places, and you're listening to the show there and everything. I'll write you out a little script if you have the time, and we'll throw it into your episode for you. It'll be a while before that anyway, because it's going to be probably like the end of April, towards when I've got this episode made.
Yeah, give me if you want to bug me again in a couple weeks when I'm back in California. I can do a much nicer job.
Yeah, we have a few other artists. We'll get some sleep, catch up from the jet lag. Definitely, very honored to have you. I'm glad we figured out all the errors there, and I'm probably going to use Zoom for some of the interviews coming up. Which hopefully, I'm hoping I've gotten some bigger names so that our podcast also the other people as well. And bigger names, I just mean other other artists as well. Like come to the show. We have Carmen Appice coming up as well, which we're really excited for. We've been pushing, and so hopefully we'll get some bigger names looking in at us, and then your interviews as well will go through too. So we're always pushing because we have our artists in mind that we interview as well to keep them circulating the vents of ears. I try to come up with like terms for that, but I really appreciate that, and I can't wait for the album After Power Pop now. I'm excited.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate this.
Enjoy your day, and hopefully the jet lag will go away soon.
Yeah.
As you're coming back to California, you'll be jet lagged then too. So
yeah.
Have a good one.
Eternal. Ciao. Bye.
You're tuned into Mad Wasp Radio, so don't forget where you are. Don't change that dial, you don't need to anyway.